Hey, what up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. Tonight I was going to do a little bit of a few videos talking about the upcoming TNA pay-per-view going on. I know in the YWC on my Twitter account there was some uproar with a lot of people thinking that the upcoming pay-per-view was tonight on Sunday. I know a lot of people aren't really talking about TNA. They just knew that there was a show coming up and they had sort of lost track if it was going to be today or if it was going to be next Sunday. Well, it is going to be on Sunday is the day that this is going down. It's sort of weird to me because, like, after Bound for Glory, there's a long stretch of time without a TNA actual real pay-per-view. They do the Spike TV specials, and it just seems like the pay-per-views are just coming like snap, snap, snap with Sacrifice, just feeling like it was just the other week, and now here we are at Slammiversary. I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of people talking about TNA unless people are talking about TNA going out of business. I know one of the real big talks going around is if they're going to get a new TV deal out there from Spike TV, or if they're going to be moving over to another company. Some people out there have this sort of thought that Jeff Jarrett's going to sneak in with Global Force, but I guess one of the things about him being a co-owner of TNA still, with him not selling his stock to leave and go start a new company, was that he was not going to negotiate with Spike TV. He was going to go out and try and find his new deal. Of course, everybody knows that him and the I don't know if it's a secret partner or a silent partner in Toby Keith. Most people have them rumored signing with CMT, going on Country Music Television Network, and starting up there. But I've also heard that it's not even going to be a real wrestling company right off the bat. It's going to be a reality show leading into how to open up a wrestling company, and once the reality show runs its course, it's going to debut with some sort of a big Global Force wrestling show, and they'll build from there. Haven't really heard about any big names signing there, but maybe with the reality show, it's going to be maybe like an Ultimate Fighter sort of deal where you get used to seeing the guys like that, and that's how they build them up and make them stars. I still think that if you want us to care, you have to have somebody on there that it's really going to matter about. I know a lot of people are talking about these low attendance numbers at recent house shows with, I believe it was either Friday night or Saturday night. There was a baseball show where they do the base brawl, where they have the field out there at home plate and everybody sort of sits in the stands and watches what's going down. And normally everybody takes a picture at a show. I know when I went to Bound for Glory, I took a picture as soon as I got to my seat, and I posted on Twitter for a funny ha-ha sort of laugh. Look what's going down. And a lot of other people do this, when they go to house shows, and most of the time it's taken before the actual show starts. When these pictures were taken, there's a match going on in the ring. So you're going to think of most people that want to go to the wrestling show that paid to get a ticket to get in there. When the matches are going to go on, they're going to be in their seats. Some people might go to the bathroom. Some people might go to the concession stand. But a good number of people are going to be sitting in those seats because that's what they paid for. They paid there to sit to watch wrestling. And this is the first time with TNA shows, people posting pictures of low attendance numbers that there was actual match going on. And the number that I heard through Wrestling Observer podcast this morning was 200 paid, and that's just horrible. If I was TNA, I would be dumping tickets all over town for people to get in there, because when people get there, you're going to get your split of the concession stand money. Who's going to go and not buy a hot dog and a Coke? You're going to get people wanting to buy a t-shirt, people wanting to buy a program for when they meet the wrestlers. There's money to be made once people get in there, even if they don't pay to get their ticket, which is probably one of the biggest things to get there to make sure they meet their guarantee that they're not losing money on this show with renting the field and paying the wrestlers and paying insurance and just everything that goes along. I know they don't pay a lot of money for promotion. It's one of the biggest reasons that people say, the wrestlers show up in the towns and they go to the gyms, they're in there working out, and somebody walks up to the wrestler and they say, "Hey man, what's going on?" And the wrestler says, "You going to the show tonight?" And people look at them like, "I didn't even know you were going to be in town." Like, TNA goes to a town, they don't even really know what's going down. But I don't know. I mean, I was sort of surprised when I went over to the Wikipedia page. They already have 7 matches named for the show, starting with Austin Aries versus Kenny King, Samoa Joe versus Bobby Lashley, Willow versus Magnus, Mr. Anderson against James Storm, which seems like it should be a good match, with them sort of feuding back and forth about just being like who they like to fight, and basically, who can drink the most beer. They had a drinking contest, and we saw Mr. Anderson, dressed up like James, and they brawled around, and yeah, it's going to be fun. That should be a good match, and that's probably the match of the night. But on the card is going to be the Von Erichs, Marshall and Ross, making their TNA debut. I'm honestly going to tell you that I don't know a lot about these guys. Basically, they're going to be wrestling anybody. It hasn't been announced who they're going to be. My guess is they would be wrestling against the Wolves for the championship. They have said that Kevin Von Erich, the last living member of the Von Erich family, is going to be there in their corner, managing his sons. These guys have been over in Pro Wrestling Noah. They went through the dojo over there. They were trained by their dad. They were trained by Harley Race. And I don't know. I've heard that these guys aren't great. I think that a lot of this is being built around Slammiversary being held in Texas, thinking that the Von Erich name is going to mean something to the people in Arlington. They're going to want to go out and support them. I think that they were, a big deal, 20, 30 years ago, but I don't think there's any wrestling fans out there that are going to be sitting on their seats like thinking that, two guys are going to tag up that they've never seen on television before and it's going to mean anything. I know that, when Reed was out there starting his career, people were going and showing up to the shows because Reed Flair was wrestling there. But it was also because if you think of how big they turned out, for Reed's first show, Hulk Hogan was a special guest referee. Ric Flair was the manager. I believe they wrestled against the Nasty Boys. They put a lot of name recognition into being there, and we can all see that TNA isn't enough name recognition in order to sell them. They can put them in there against guys like Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, but it really isn't going to matter in the long run because no one's even going to know that they're going to be there. If these guys were that great, honestly, I think they would still be making a name for themselves over in Pro Wrestling Noah. I think that more than likely this is just TNA falling back on their whole thing that they don't want to pay the wrestlers that much. That's why we've seen the big names of AJ Styles leave. We've seen Chris Sabin leave. On the outs right now is Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian. All of these guys are big names that you sort of built the company of TNA, and now instead of paying these guys thousands of dollars a night, they're going to be wrestling for $200 to $300 or whatever it's going to be on the lower end. And these guys seem to sort of fit into that thing that they're just sort of happy to have a job, they're happy to be on TV, and hoping that TNA is the company that can be moving forward and staying alive. I'm not looking for a lot out of this match, but it honestly could be something that does surprise me. Like I said, I don't know a lot about these guys. I just know that they're going to be wanting to go out there and try and make the biggest name they can in their debut match for TNA. So that's going to be the first match that I talk about, and we'll go on to the next one. Hey, what up everybody? This is Stevie Breach. These are going to be, add-ons to the Slammiversary video as we get closer to TNA Slammiversary coming up right around the corner. It seems that TNA is bringing back their gimmick of a Hall of Fame. I think last year with Bound for Glory, it was a real big slap in the face to all those people who bought the travel packages or went down to San Diego or were lucky enough to live there where a pay-per-view came. And this was for the travel package. We bought the platinum one. We sat front row, and it was part of the things that we went there. Kurt Angle was put into the Hall of Fame last year as the second member of the Hall of Fame, joining Sting. And it seems that Kurt Angle is going to come out there and pass the tradition on and insert somebody else into the TNA Wrestling Hall of Fame. I don't know. From a lot of rumors out there, it seems that TNA might be able to just slide on and move forward. It seems that Spike TV didn't make a play after SmackDown after all, and that's one of the things that's going to keep them in business, because more than likely Spike is going to step up to the plate, and they're going to dump money into TNA to keep them in the rating on Thursday nights on their television. That was one of the biggest things that was keeping them alive. Bob Carter has said that he's not going to put any more money into this wrestling company because they've already put so much and they're not getting anything back out of it. Even though Bob has tried to sell this company on one attempt that almost went down, and just last month when the production people threatened to go on strike and walk out, he was the one who stepped up to the table and signed the checks in order to keep them there, because if you don't have production people, you're not going to be able to make a show, and that's not good not to be turning in shows for Spike TV to a company who's not doing it. But my only thoughts about the TNA Hall of Fame is, who are they going to put in? Sting has left the company and gone back to WWE. Well, not officially, you know, we've talked about that before, but someday, Sting's going to be there, I guess. Kurt Angle's still there. It's good to have him on the show, since so many people have said, you know, with his surgery, he's going to get worked on, and then he's going to go sign with WWE. I've heard some people say he's going to go back and be some sort of performer. Some people say he's just going to go down to the Performance Center and become a trainer. You know, who knows what the future will hold. Honestly, in my opinion, Kurt Angle is such a warrior as a person and as an athlete. I think he's going to want to compete on the highest level until the day he just can't do it anymore. I don't think he would be, you know, having surgeries in order to make his body better if it wasn't for, you know, the reason that he wants to compete. And I think that he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be out there till his dying day. Wrestling, I wouldn't be surprised if he stays in TNA. But, you know, honestly, in my opinion, there's only two names that should be going into TNA at the top of the list. One is Jeff Jarrett, your co-founder, your builder, the architect of what has gone down. You know, I don't even know how many times Jarrett won the title in TNA. I would have to guess a number like 12, 13, 14. It seemed like he always had the championship, and, you know, he was, you know, the guy that was trying to get people over earlier in the day using his name recognition from WWE, from WCW Nitro, and was putting, you know, guys over like AJ Styles and putting them on the list. But how do you bring back a guy, you know, he's, wink, wink, still with the company as a shareholder, but, you know, he's starting up a new wrestling company, which I guess is going to be on a different network. Part of his deal was that, you know, he's able to start this. It's not going to be a difference of interest, I guess you can say, or something like that, you know, because it's going to be on a different network. He can't negotiate with Spike TV. He couldn't steal the TNA deal, or, you know, underwrite him and go against him or anything like that. But how do you bring back somebody who's starting a different company in Global Force and not have him put that over? Maybe you have him, you know, sign something saying in his speech he won't say Global Force. He won't say, you know, watch the company with the green ropes, you know, or, you know, look for me in the future in what I'm doing or something like that. But it's like TNA is going to be fighting for everything that they need in the future. And, you know, if it's going to be just staying on Spike TV, you know, fighting for pay-per-view buys. Recently, you saw Ring of Honor go out there, and then they're going to start doing their own pay-per-views, which, you know, won't be held on the same days as TNA, but still, it's like, you only have so much money for pay-per-views if you want to watch wrestling. And if two shows are in the same month and you know that bill's going to come, you already have your regular cable bill, which is coming, which is $100. Are you going to, you know, give $40 to TNA to get their show, and then also pay for the Ring of Honor show, which is cheaper and is going to put on just as good of a show? You know, you want to pay for both? I think that Ring of Honor said their shows are going to be $25. So, you know, like, you know, are you going to get both, or are you just going to get one? You know, so many times you're fighting against it, and that's what's the WWE, with the network getting all of the pay-per-views, it's such a bargain of a deal. It just doesn't make sense for Jeff to come back, even if it's to accept an accomplishment, when he's going to be doing something else. You can't put over somebody else. I know that WWE worked out the deal for Christian to come back, and Christian seemed like he was going to go to the Hall of Fame and put over Sting and be a big part of that, because of the Sting and Christian rivalry, and, you know, Christian being such a big part of the architecture of really building him up. It was, you know, they had stolen WWE guys and made them champion before, with Raven, with Rhino, but Christian was the first guy to make you go like, wow, they stole a guy who wasn't past his peak. You know, he was still in the prime of his career and had great matches, you know, with AJ Styles, with Sting, with Samoa Joe, with, you know, Kurt Angle. Christian was a big-time hand that would go in there. I guess you can say Christian would be number 2, but because of his WWE deal, you know, TNA doesn't have Ric Flair to pull off that trade like they did at WrestleMania 28. Is that when he went in the Hall of Fame? With the Four Horsemen, and they were able to use him even though he was still in TNA, even though the TNA never used him again after that. And Christian went and did the the thing on the Slammiversary show, and then he ended up getting hurt, and then he just didn't go to Bound for Glory to the Hall of Fame or whatever the hell that was. But, you know, the only other name I can think of that is out there is AJ Styles. AJ Styles, one of their biggest names, one of the guys that they slammed the door on in the last year. He won the title at Bound for Glory. It was the first time that he'd been champion there in a long time. He held the title until, I think it was January, and lost it in his last match on TNA TV to Magnus, and I think he was just gone after that. And I think that sometime around February is when I saw the writing on the wall that AJ wasn't coming back, and that is when I sort of lost all of my interest in TNA for the most part. It took a long while for me to look in the mirror and realize that, you know, I can't be a hypocrite who's saying on, you know, my wrestling videos that I want TNA to succeed, and at the same time just blatantly shutting the door on the company and not, you know, paying any attention to it. AJ almost has the same thing that Jeff Jarrett has. He's not starting his own company, but he's working for two separate companies, New Japan Pro Wrestling. You know, they're not on pay-per-view. They're not going to be fighting against TNA for those pay-per-view buys, but they are an iPay-per-view company. And he also is he's one of the main stars for ROH as well. Just recently working the show in Toronto and the show in New York. Even though he sort of came in as a New Japan guy, a part of the Bullet Club. It just wouldn't make sense to bring him back either at the same point, even if it's, you know, just to stand on the stage, say thank you, tell some good TNA stories. The fact to me is that, you know, I just don't understand how TNA slapped everybody in the face. You know, with they acted like the dinner, the reception didn't happen the night before when Sting came out to hand Kurt Angle the watch last year. Basically, it was just like, you know, Angle turned it down. He said he wasn't going to accept this Hall of Fame thing until he started winning again. And then all of a sudden, they went over to the UK. They had a big show. And at that point, that's when Angle accepted his Hall of Fame thing, because I think he beat Robert Roode or something like that. And it was just like, I sat there. I watched him. You know, the acceptance speech was 2.5 minutes. It seemed like he didn't want to put the exclamation point on his career yet, but he was in the Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame. Like, I was there. I bought the package. They gave me a ticket. I sat there. I had the tux jacket on, and it is what it is. But you know, I don't know. I don't know. I scratch my head. If I had to make a guess right now, I would guess that Samoa Joe, the biggest name in the company, you can say he's sort of like the locker room leader. When they were doing the UK tour, everybody heard the story about him standing up on the bus on the last night of the show, saying that, you know, the company was moving forward. He was proud of the company. They didn't have any sort of Ric Flair moments. The whole time everybody was together. Nobody really was a prima donna and pulled above everybody else. And even though, you know, all the names that left, and, you know, it seemed like the ship was sinking. Everybody was on the up and up and moving towards, you know, trying to make TNA the best company they could. So that's my guess, is that Samoa Joe is going to be named into the TNA Hall of Fame at Slammiversary. It'd be awesome, you know, Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle. If anybody could have a match out there with Angle, if he stayed there, I'd want to see you know, Kurt Angle wrestle Samoa Joe 1,000 times, and in both of their careers. You know, you can sort of look at Samoa Joe. He would have been a bigger star if it wasn't for the Kurt Angle signing. You know, TNA was really starting to stack pieces on top of each other at that point and become a better company. They were the wrestling alternative. A lot of people were, you know, looking at what John Cena was doing and sort of becoming sick of it. You know, the Joe's Gotta Kill You deal thing was a big deal over in TNA. And I don't know, you brought Angle in. You know, right off the bat, you ran the series of matches with Joe. I think they had the rubber match, and Angle ended up winning 2, and Joe won 1. And ever since then, I mean, Joe was champion again a year later, maybe 2 years later, but it wasn't the same. You know, Joe just was looked at as a star, but he wasn't a star as big as Kurt Angle. So, yeah, that's it. TNA Hall of Fame. What do you guys think? Next match on the card is going to be Bully Ray versus EC3. Everybody knows the whole situation was going down for here. It's going to be a long time for any of us really forget what happened at Sacrifice, basically, with Bully Ray fighting against... oh shit, I just told you that everybody's going to remember and I just forgot. Bully Ray fought against Robert Roode in that tables match. And basically, when Bully Ray seemed like he was going to have the match all wrapped up, Dixie Carter came running out. She was down at the ring. She was disguised as somebody in a production shoot. And basically, her coming into the ring helped Bully Ray lose the match. And Dixie Carter was exposed for wearing this stupid disguise. Why she just couldn't run out of the back. Why she wasn't supposed to be there. I got no clue. It still doesn't make any sense to me. In the upcoming episodes of Impact, they never really explained why she was wearing the disguise. They just probably had extra money laying around in this, big, huge budget that TNA runs with and just wanted to make sure. I don't know. I am bewildered. I have no idea. This still makes no sense to me on what's going down. Basically, because of this, Bully Ray wanted to go out and find some sort of revenge. I don't even know. I know that from here, Bobby Roode became the #1 contender. He had a series of matches against Eric Young. He wasn't able to pull out the win. I don't even think I've seen him on TV in the last little bit. He's not really booked for the show as of now, unless he's the last minute ad. They've already got 7 matches, so I'm not sure. Bobby Roode, turning babyface, seems like it's the right time for this. Bobby Roode is an awesome heel. Everybody has to flip every once in a while. It seems like Bobby Roode has fought everybody up and down the roster at least more than twice. So, it's just a change of pace to see what's going on from there. I wasn't a real big fan of James Storm turning heel, but it seems to be working now, a month into the turn. But basically, Bully Ray is caught in between these two forces, basically. He's the baby face going up against 2 heels almost at the same time, even though he only has 1 match against EC3. EC3 is a non-existent factor. Nobody really cares about him in this match. Everybody's trying to chase down when Bully Ray is going to find a way to put Dixie Carter through the table. Basically, Bully Ray has been, chasing Dixie around, stalking him at the TNA offices, at Dixie Carter's home. It was a good series of videos about to do this, and when he was finally about to pay off and put Dixie Carter through the table, MVP was the one guy who stepped in, basically to say that, don't do it, and made her put her down. They barred her from the building, and we had to go back on the chase for when this was finally going to happen. We got Dixie Carter and we got MVP. They came to solve their situation. Basically, MVP hijacked the company from Dixie because of the match at whatever pay-per-view it was. I can't even remember when Bully Ray turned babyface and helped MVP win the company and put it in the right hands at the right time, even though MVP screwed us all by turning on Eric Young to try and become the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. It still makes me shake my head. That's a big change of pace to go from, winning the company to turning on the company in no time. But at least the one thing they're keeping up with it is that he still does not get along with Dixie Carter, because I thought the one way that they were going to do this was they were just going to hand the company back over to Dixie. MVP was going to be happy with just getting the #1 contendership to try and become the champion, take it away from Eric Young, and everything be fine with that. But I feel like I'm gonna be talking about that in the next match, and I'm not talking enough about what's going on in here. Basically, I think everybody wants to see Bully Ray put Dixie Carter through the table, even though, if you know anything, they can't do it on Spike TV unless it's just really, really bad smoke and mirrors, or basically the camera's focused on one thing, and then you hear the crash, and then they show Dixie laying on the ground and she's gone through the table. Spike TV isn't going to allow them to do any male-on-female violence, and in this world, maybe they shouldn't even do this. I know that Dixie Carter is the owner of the company. I know that, Vince McMahon, for the longest time, would raise hell against Stone Cold Steve Austin and hold him down for the longest time possible. And at the right possible moment, Stone Cold got his hands on Vince, and he would beat the shit out of him. I think everybody's going to remember the St. Valentine's Day Massacre match in the steel cage. where Austin beat his ass, almost had the match won until everybody found out the match hadn't even begun yet. They finally get him in the ring, and that's when Big Show arrives and does his big debut, throws Austin out of the cage, where Austin's able to get the win in the match, but everybody wants to see what's going to happen with Stone Cold against Big Show. That's not going to happen here, basically. Dixie Carter has EC3. EC3, when he came in, was sort of looked at as sort of a joke. He kept wrestling the guys that were doing the merchandise sales and the merchandise moves, the guys from PWG. And where have they been? Get them back on TV. They were entertaining. But basically, EC3 now has ditched that sort of demeanor, and now he's sort of like a real serious wrestler, even though everybody really looks at him like he's a big joke. He needs to have that one big breakthrough moment that people are really going to put him on the map, as EC3 is a real dude that people really care about. And beating Bully Ray would be that, but I don't think anybody wants to see that. It doesn't make much sense. But then Bully Ray doesn't really have anywhere to climb up the ladder with Eric Young being the champion unless MVP takes it away. So it's sort of a flip-flop sort of moment. I think that it's a long time until October, the next pay-per-view. So you really have to decide, when is Bully Ray going to get his hands on Dixie and put her through this table. It has to be on pay-per-view. I think you can get away with male-on-female violence if you want that in your company. I think that it would be a big moment. I'm not sure it would be a great lasting moment. I know Bully Ray is been good, putting people through the tables with Terry Runnels, with Mae Young, with et cetera, et cetera. He's never really hurt anybody with this. That he could do it the right way and everything be fine as long as the person trusts Bully Ray to just do what he says and everything be fine. If he can do it with Mae Young and not hurt her, he can do it with anybody. But, do you really want the fans to really have to hold out and wait all the way until October to see this? Maybe if Bully Ray wins this, MVP wins the championship, maybe move him up to becoming the #1 contender. Then again, they would have that going now. I was going to say they would have the Bound for Glory series, but it looks like maybe they're not even going to do that because I think that was a part of Slammiversary last year. Are they even going to put anybody in the Hall of Fame? I got more questions about Slammiversary than I do about anything else because I think at Slammiversary normally, isn't that when they would crown who the #1 contender was? That would be where they finished up the Bound for Glory series. Damn, I missed the Bound for Glory series. The first year they really fucked it up. The second year with when Jeff Hardy won it was all right, but the third year last year, even though it got screwed up a little bit with AJ having to win the big match at the end that shot him into the thing, and it didn't really make sense, but everything else was pretty cool. It seemed like they were getting their hands around that, but maybe the people that were doing that are on the outside, and people aren't really wanting to do that again, where I have to make sure everybody had the same number of matches. But I'll take Bully Ray to lose this match, hopefully hoping EC3 making him a more memorable, thought-about character on the show and helping out what's going on there, because I don't think anybody takes the guy serious. But we'll see what happens. We'll go from here. We'll go to the next match. All right. And in the main event of Slammiversary 2014, we're going to have MVP going up against Eric Young, if this match is even able to happen. Over the last week, I believe it was over in the UK on May 30th, basically MVP was wrestling in a match over there, and he really, really hurt his knee. As of this point right now, the last update I've heard is that MVP, his knee, it's inconclusive. They have not been able to have an X-ray or an MRI prove that anything is really messed up inside the knee. It just really hurts. And as of June 2nd, the last we've seen of MVP was on Chris Masters' Twitter. He was in a wheelchair at the time. So, we could be really screwed up. I know that, MVP is a gamer. He's done everything in the world of wrestling, and he's going to give every chance he can. I mean, this is basically his biggest time to shine for TNA. He's in the main event of Slammiversary, and there's no time like now. He came back. He didn't get the WWE return that I think a lot of people were really looking for, but after his tour of Japan, which you can say it was really, really successful. At the time he left WWE to go to Japan, his career was sort of on the downhill swing there. I think that at one point, WrestleMania 24. It looked like MVP was really, really going to be somebody. Of course, you can go back at the Mania before with him and Benoit. It looked like MVP was going to be a big part of the WWE for a good long time. And then I don't know if it was just him moving to Raw, him, turning babyface. Just, it didn't really work out. You can sort of say the same thing with Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Anderson on the TNA roster as well. It just, the move to Raw, and then also, the babyface turn killed both of these guys. He found himself on the outs. He ended up having a good place to go in Japan, and he got his big turn. So, he knows, when you're booked for a show, especially for as big, I apologize, but yeah, as big as Slammiversary is for TNA, maybe he could find some way to get in the ring and do it, because I know a lot of people are thinking that Daniel Bryan in WWE is going to find some way to do this stretcher match with Kane at the pay-per-view, because he's a wrestler, and that's what wrestlers do, is they find a way to fight through the pain to give the fans what they've paid for. The one thing that I'm scared of is that, especially with this being Eric Young in the ring, is that MVP is going to find some way to have a match with Eric Young where they use comedy and find a way to smoke and mirrors around this ring and give us a match, but not really do anything in the long run. To me, they've built TNA and Slammiversary around Eric Young, the guy who just last year was being looked at as a joke, who was wrestling in these just comedy matches and trying to figure out this whole thing with him and Abyss and this tag team. And the pay-per-view poster is just, this is the 10th Slammiversary, even though they're calling it Slammiversary 12 because it's the 12th year of TNA, which sort of racks my brain a little bit. But just all the different pictures, from Don't Fire Eric to Team Canada to, his picture of him leading the world, and, all the guys. Eric Young is one of those guys that he hasn't been there since day one, but he's been there since the first year of TNA and been a real piece to the puzzle, I guess you can say. I think that if they are going to substitute out Eric Young and Eric Young's opponent and maybe give him another guy in there. I know that Bobby Lashley is wrestling against I think it's Samoa Joe, and Kenny King is wrestling against Austin Aries. Austin Aries, a guy who I think is going to be leaving the company sooner than later if everything goes the way it seems that it's going on the internet. I don't know if maybe you'll cancel the Samoa Joe match with Bobby Lashley, move him up and put him into the driver's seat of the main event of the show, which seems like would be a big deal. He came in at Lockdown. He joined this, I don't know if it's a coalition or leadership or what this is. I don't even think they've really put a name on MVP's group. I know that some people on the internet joke about it being the new Nation of Domination, but I don't know. There's a little part of me that think that MVP would win the championship from Eric Young, and that would be the plan. Eric Young would be looked at as a guy who was the champion. He had a good run, much like Chris Sabin did, where it's sort of like I don't know if he's going to be there for a long haul. I know a lot of people are saying that, basically, Eric Young became the champion. They wanted to build him up and play around his, reality show fame with this hunting and fishing show on the Animal Planet network, and sort of seemed like he's the biggest star they got. I know that, with TNA, a lot of the guys that they've given the World Heavyweight Championship to have, parted ways with the company, like Chris Sabin and AJ Styles, that moved on to the next thing down the road. I don't know if that's what happens, but it seems to me like, with MVP being the heel of the company, and the biggest storyline that's involved in this is MVP versus Dixie Carter. Even though they're both heels, they're both fighting for power, and if he already, got that leadership stake in the company, and he also became champion, you have Dixie throwing people at him, trying to find a way to do it. Maybe, I don't know, with the whole thing with Dixie and Bubba Ray, I haven't called him that in years, Bully Ray, maybe then you could find, some way to turn Dixie. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but maybe I'm really stretching here. But in this one, I'm picking MVP to get the win and go on from there. Eric Young was champion. I think Dave Meltzer said it best on the Wrestling Observer podcast. Not everybody's made out to be champion. You got to run with it. It was what it was. I don't think anybody really ever looked at him like he was believable. But, Eric Young's a great guy. He's been there for a long time. So, some people are really going to think that he deserves it. So, let me know what you guys think. The Slammiversary pay-per-view is going to be held on Sunday. It's a week from tonight. Or by the time this gets uploaded, it's on Monday. You guys might see it a few days later, or right before the show. So, this is the preview. Thank you, everybody, for checking it out, and we'll see you on down the road. Sunday night, we'll have the review up. I'm pretty sure I'm going to check this out. I'm not 100% sure, but it is what it is, and it's wrestling on a Sunday. Most people think you might find it on the network. Hey, what up, everybody? Stevie Breach. This will be an add-on, an update to the Eric Young and MVP video that I made earlier in the week. It seems from listening to the Chris Jericho podcast, he had MVP on as guest this week. A follow-up on Bully Ray being on the show last week, or maybe the week before. All of those were really excellent shows. Chris Jericho has a great podcast. I don't really like the intros that well. I do like it when he plays with the cowbell. Him singing Mark Henry is always a treat, or singing sort of like those 70s and 80s themes and banging along on the cowbell is fun. But, him interviewing the janitor and things like that around the show, I just can't get down with that. It's just not for me. But he does have excellent interviews, asks excellent questions, goes with the flow, and I'd highly recommend the show. I fast forward the first 5-10 minutes most of the time. But MVP on the show talked about his career, talked about the upcoming Slammiversary show, why he came into TNA, and he said that he's had the problem that he had with his knee that everybody's talked about on the internet. Before, he's had the same thing happen. He goes to the doctor. They tell him that the MRIs are going to be inconclusive. They gave him a muscle relaxer and some stuff to deal with the pain, and he was out and doing what he does normally. And he says he's going to wrestle on the show, and he's going to talk to creative, and they're going to work something out, and they're going to get the job done. He's supposed to be there, and that's what wrestlers do. They show up and they play, especially when you're in the main event, wrestling for the championship. And the whole pay-per-view is basically built around you, and basically the whole show is built around you right now with the whole MVP versus Dixie Carter storyline, where they're sort of both bad guys battling against each other. That is what that is. But honestly, when it comes down to it, the one reason why I made this video was they added on a new match to the card. It's going to be a 6-man ladder match for the TNA X Division Championship, and it really caught my eyes because it's going to be your normal cast of people in there. It's got Sonata, Manic, Tiger Uno, and they're adding Crazy Steve from the Menagerie, the group that came out with Nux, and they're going to be in there battling it around. But the Wolves are going to be in there, Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards. Basically, when they had the Von Erichs match named, and they said that their opponents were going to be to be determined. That they were going to be like the secret mystery guys. I was like, well, they'll probably just put him in there with the Wolves. They'll give him a championship shot, and if they're going to keep him, maybe they'll have him win. Maybe they'll just have a great match, and they'll have the respect finish where they both shake hands at the end and say, we'll see you down the road, and maybe they'll be guys that wrestle each other along the way. But basically, with this being an X Division Championship match, it means Eddie Edwards or Davey Richards could walk away with the X Division Championship. And with the upcoming Destination X show, it really grabs your attention, with the X Division champion being able to cash in like the Money in the Bank and go after whoever the champion is. Right now, at this point, it would be easy for me to say MVP is going to beat Eric Young. Eric Young hasn't been the best champion. Nobody's really getting behind it. I know he has a show on the Animal Planet, but it's just not working. I love the guy. He was really nice the whole Bound for Glory weekend to me and everybody else, and everybody knows him as a locker room leader who's been in TNA since day one. But I don't know, man. MVP to me, honestly, would be a better champion. I don't think it raises TNA from the gutter that it's in right now. But just to me, I mean, like you think about it, MVP, although he did turn his back on the fans storyline-wise, and turn his back on the Wolves after being the guy who brought the Wolves in, and basically just to turn on them, it didn't make any sense to me. I know that MVP hasn't gotten involved in Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards' business, but easily Eddie Edwards or Davey Richards could win that X Division Championship, cash in the Destination X, and we could have a one-on-one match between, the guy who brought them into the company, and who they are. Honestly, I think that Edwards and Richards are baby faces, and they're going to stay that way. But I mean, like, everything right now is sort of gray with TNA. MVP's biggest foe, even though he's wrestling against Eric Young, is Dixie Carter, who is basically in a feud with Bully Ray. It's almost like it doesn't matter if you're a traditional babyface, if you're a traditional heel, you're not getting along with somebody else. Almost like everybody is revolving around everybody else's storylines. And Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards, more than likely to me, besides for Willow, Jeff Hardy, that's the person who's gonna bring people in to watch your company. That's your fresh meat. That's your the people you should be putting on your posters and saying that these are the stars of tomorrow, and see them wrestle today. Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards, since they've came on the wrestling scene, and I've been around since 2009 and 2010, they've sort of been the guys to watch. I know that Davey Richards, when he held the championship in ROH, people sort of got sick of the good guy champion always winning a match and giving the big speech at the end of the show, thinking that fans were coming out. It just sort of was just dry. He didn't have the best opponents, but he did blow people away with having great matches. But if you don't really have storylines that go behind him, it sort of dries it out. But to me, honestly, I said that I was going to watch this show. I didn't do the math and know that it was on Father's Day. So if I can watch the show, I will watch the show. But to me, honestly, my excitement level for this was these are just some matches, and one of them might jump up and steal the show, and something might be good out of this. Honestly, it's now grown to now there's two matches that I really want to see. I want to see this X Division match to see if Edwards or Richards can win the X Division championship. And then I also want to see if that happens, if MVP can win, just so I can see this Edwards and MVP match or Richards versus MVP match. I think that's where you go from there. Some people will say that you don't want to break the Wolves up. They're one of their best tag teams. But I think that honestly, these guys were single guys in ROH, and I think that's probably the best thing. You can have a good tag division, but if you don't have a good main event, what's the point? So I say, don't break them up. You can keep them together where they can still wrestle on TV shows and house shows and all that jazz as the Wolves. But the Edwards and Richards as single guys is probably the direction they need to go. So we'll just add that on. Sunday's the big pay-per-view, Slammiversary. Don't miss out.